What if I told you the biggest mistake advisors make with client events has nothing to do with the venue, the food, or even the budget? Most advisors focus on client appreciation, but the firms creating the strongest loyalty and getting referrals are doing something entirely different. They're engineering client stories. Drawing from the experience economy, this episode of the Financial Advisor Playbook is all about how to stop hosting ordinary client events and start staging unforgettable experiences that people can't wait to talk about. Because the best marketing isn't another postcard or an email campaign. It's giving your clients a story that's worth repeating. Let's dive in.
This is the Financial Advisor Marketing Playbook, a show for financial advisors who want to explore the topic of client acquisition and business growth. Your host is Mark Mersman, Chief Marketing Officer at USA Financial. He is an investment advisor representative of securities offered through USA Financial Securities, member FINRA SIPC, a registered investment advisor.
Welcome to this episode of the Playbook. I often will get the question, what's the best client event to host? And, whether it's an appreciation event or you're trying to structure it as a referral event, the truth of the matter is you should be thinking about that question a little differently. Most advisors, if they do host events, they're just hosting your traditional events, whether it's going to a ball game, whether it's a shred day, and there's nothing wrong with those things, but I want to challenge you to start thinking about staging experiences with your client events. And there's a huge difference between just hosting your run-of-the-mill event and staging an experience. And if you're not familiar with the book, The Experience Economy, something I think it came out in the late 90s, written by two gentlemen, last names Pine and Gilmore, and it has resonated with me. And there's been multiple editions now, I think, that have come out, but it has always struck me because they really look at some of the businesses out there that are super successful. And really what it is that they have done is they have moved from selling commodities to goods to services to now the most successful businesses are those that actually command loyalty are staging a memorable experience. And we've talked about this in the past with Disney and Apple, and, Harley doesn't sell motorcycles. They're selling a story, right? They're creating stories that people tell. And I want you to think about, as a financial advisor, how can you think about your client events in the same way? And I was recently had a conversation with my team, and one of my team members had brought their kids to an RV shop, an RV store. And she said, my kids had the best time in the world. And, they just loved kind of going through the RVs. And in my mind, I was thinking, there's a way that you could even amplify that. Because if that worked, if just getting parents to get their kids there and their kids had a good time running through the RVs, how could we even draw more people? And what's the way that you could do that? And the idea that I had, and I think that other companies have done something like this, I know I've seen this at a zoo, is, here in West Michigan, there's a company here, and I'm sure this is the case, throughout the country, that you can hire a princess for a day, so a Disney princess. And our zoo did it here not too long ago. I think it's an annual thing for them, but they'll hire a few princesses to come and the kids can do a meet and greet there. And, really, if you think about it, you're using that tool, the princess in this case, as kind of the lure to draw people in. And instead of advertising, for this RV store, instead of advertising, come and look at our RVs, they could have advertised, bring your kids to meet Disney princesses. And oh, by the way, the kids are going to have a magical afternoon. The parents are going to go through all the RVs. The kids are going to love it as well. It's going to be an experience that those people would remember. And at the end of the day, the RV store, they just want to get foot traffic. They want to get people there. And if you target it at your ideal target market, which oftentimes is going to be families with little kids or grandparents that want to bring their little kids there that might be interested in an RV, you are creating a memorable experience. The RV piece of it almost becomes secondary. So I want to challenge you as an advisor. What's your version of the princesses? What can be a draw for your clients to want to bring their friends? And that's kind of the draw. But oh, by the way, this is my financial advisor. He's the one that's hosting it. And now you get the personal introduction. One of the things that you can do is to borrow trust to stretch people out of their comfort zones. It's one of my favorite concepts. And I think a lot of people, they might be reluctant to do certain things unless they're with somebody that they trust or they know that it's a comfortable environment. And sometimes there are things that we wanted to do, but we just kind of hold off on doing because it's not a priority, or we don't make it something that we, really want to go after ourselves. But if we're brought along and the opportunities presented to us, maybe there's something that I'll jump into. One example might be, and I've seen a number of advisors do this, where they've invited their female clients to a pistol shooting clinic. And, some clients obviously aren't going to be interested in that, but they had an incredible turnout simply because it's something that, many women might not be comfortable going to the gun range and getting, going through that process, but they've thought about it. I know, for example, my wife is in that camp. She has thought about it. She's mentioned it a number of times, but she's never physically called and said and made an appointment to go to the, to go to the gun range. But if this opportunity were presented to her, it's something that she might entertain. And because it's a trusted financial advisor that is hosting a women's confidence and self-defense afternoon taught by certified instructors with people just like yourself, other women who might not have experience in this area, now all of a sudden it becomes intriguing. It isn't necessarily about firearms anymore. It's about confidence. It's memorable. It's something that they're going to talk about. And that's really the big thing that we're trying to accomplish here. We want them the next day to feel good about it and to talk about it and to have a story behind, hey, I just went and did this. Another thing to think about, oftentimes we're so focused on, boy, it has to be entertaining. Well, entertainment is passive. When you really start to think about it, experiences start to reinforce our identity, right? And identity events are going to be entertainment most of the time. And so instead of asking, well, what event should we host? I want to challenge you to ask a totally different question, which is, what kind of person does your client aspire to become? When you start to think about that and you really understand your clients and especially your ideal clients, when you ask that question, that changes everything. And I'll share some ideas with you. And this one's fairly common. We see this every now and again, but kind of do the private chef challenge. Clients can work in teams with a professional chef. It's not necessarily a cooking class. It's an actual timed competition. It's elevating from the traditional cooking class, which a number of advisors have done, but now we turn it into a timed competition. And then everyone eats afterwards. And, we've seen this, you've seen TV shows about this, but this is a unique idea that's out there. And that's the thing that I want you to challenge yourself into thinking, what is it that I can do to create that really unique experience? And again, it's not always about spending tons of money or spending more money. It's about thinking outside the box and what will attract your existing clients, your ideal clients, and maybe encourage them to bring a friend. What's going to attract them from an experience standpoint? Another one might be a flight simulator. Rent time at a commercial flight simulator, and clients get to land an airplane with an instructor. I can guarantee you, if you do something like that, nobody will forget that event because they will talk about it with their grandkids, with their kids. That is a memorable experience. Another one to think about, and this is a little bit easier to pull off. It's probably not as intricate, or maybe, and this will probably be more accessible to the average person. Everybody loves exclusivity. So how can we arrange behind the scenes access or a private tour that most people simply can't buy? And, whether that's at a TV station or a brewery or a theater. A theater would be a great one. Maybe you're going to go to a show, but you're going to get behind the scenes access, backstage of the theater to get a sense for what all goes into that. Or maybe you have clients that are really into airplanes and you can get an airport operations backstage access, or a symphony rehearsal. Another cool one could be a race team's garage. If you have a number of clients that are really into car racing, that'd be a really cool experience that elevates it up above, the normal, I'm going to take you out to the race. Elevate that experience, because number one, it's going to be memorable. And number two, people love exclusivity. So the behind the scenes access, you could take just about any sort of normal client event and see if there's a little twist you can put on it for some behind the scenes access. And the cool thing about this is it really plays well if they're smaller groups. So this doesn't have to be a lot of client events. Advisors think, oh, I'm going to invite 100 people or 50 people. This can be done really well with 8 to 12 people. You grab, 2 or 3 of your best clients and have them each bring another couple, and there you go, do a behind the scenes access. I've heard this one. This one was kind of cool, a falconry experience where you actually have a professional falconer where clients can actually handle hawks. It sounds really crazy and out there, but it's something that they will always remember. I thought about this the other day. We have somebody that lives not far from me that is a blacksmith, and, where you can do a blacksmith for a day type of client event, and everyone forges their own bottle opener or their own knife, and they're actually leaving with something that they made. So it takes that experience and extends it. If it's a bottle opener, that experience is going to be etched in their mind every time they reach for that bottle opener that they made or that knife that they made. So kind of think outside the box a little bit. We've had a few advisors do glass blowing, where clients can kind of create their own ornament or their own bowl, and years later, they're still going to have it, and they'll say, remember when we made these? Really cool idea. It's outside the box, and candidly, it's fairly budget friendly when you really start to do the math on it. We've seen some where, whether it's winemaking or the whiskey barrel experience, where clients blend and kind of bottle their own bourbon, or you offer coffee roasting if alcohol doesn't fit. Again, these are little experiences that you can stage, and whether you're in a big town or a small town, there's a lot of these people that would more than love to kind of show off and showcase who they are, what they do, what their professional experience is. And even if their company doesn't normally do that sort of thing, you would be surprised at how many would open up their doors and, let us have a small group in. And then there's just some logistics with maybe some food or some drinks to navigate for you on the client experience side. Lots of cool stuff like that. I want you to really think outside the box, whether you have an astronomer night and you have professional astronomers with large telescopes, and, you bring some wine, there's constellations, there's stories that get told. That's something that is really hard to duplicate. It's completely out of the norm, and something that you are now in the business of engineering client stories. And that's an experience that they'll never forget. You could do beekeeping if you have some risk takers, I guess, in the group, whether you have clients that suit up and harvest honey and then they leave with a jar, or a hot air balloon festival, where you're the VIP there and there's a private breakfast. And even if they don't fly, you get to meet the pilots and walk inside the balloons and get kind of that backstage experience. So I want you to start thinking outside the box. We're all used to and accustomed to the traditional, whether you go to a Top Golf type of a place or you go to a minor league ball game, and there's nothing wrong with those events, but I want to challenge you to elevate that experience a little bit more. One of the key principles here, we want to give them something to talk about. I think one of the tests that the experience economy, really tries to get you thinking about it is, and it's really kind of the central takeaway here is, ask, would somebody tell a friend about this tomorrow? Don't ask, well, did they have fun? Because of course you can take somebody to a ball game, they're going to have a good time, but chances are they're not going to tell a friend about that tomorrow. And I think that becomes a litmus test for you is, would someone want to tell a friend about this tomorrow? Or, would they consider posting it on social media? Or are they going to tell their grandkids about something really cool that they just did, or tell their kids about something really cool? Because here's the reality. Experiences market themselves, and they don't need your help to necessarily continue to be told. So I want you to stop asking, what's a good client appreciation event? And I want you to start asking questions like, what's something my clients have always wanted to try? Or, what experience would make them feel really interesting or feel like they challenge themselves? Or, this is a good one. What could they maybe never easily arrange for themselves? Or maybe they wouldn't even think to arrange it for themselves. What would their grandparents what would their grandchildren ask about afterwards? Give them a reason to tell that story, to tell their friends. That's what you want to elicit. And those are the questions you should be asking, not what's a good client appreciation event. We want to challenge them. We want really to take your clients from here into a place that maybe they've always wanted to try, or they wouldn't ever book for themselves or schedule themselves. But boy, that was really, really cool. Because as I wrap this up, I want you to think and realize that the best client event isn't the one with the biggest budget. It's really about, will that client tell that story for years to come? Because they're not going to remember the chicken dinner or the great steak that you bought them. Sure, they appreciate it, but it's not memorable. They'll never forget the day that they landed a plane, or that they forged their own knife, or that they did the glass blowing thing and they created this bowl, or if they held a hawk. They're never going to forget that event. They'll forget your steak. They're going to forget the chicken that you bought them. Or if you do a client barbecue, they're going to forget all of that. But if they surprise their granddaughter to meet a princess, that's not something they're going to forget. So you have to realize that, yes, our day-to-day as advisors is managing a client's wealth, but you have an opportunity to do so much more for your clients than just manage their wealth. You have the opportunity to create memories for your clients. And memories are the things that build relationships in a way that a PowerPoint presentation never will. So as you wrap up, I want you to think about being a client event engineer, a story engineer. And hopefully this episode gave you a few ideas and maybe challenged you to think outside of the box a little bit. So if you like this type of content, please do me a favor, like and subscribe, whether it's on podcast or whether it's on the YouTube channel. Appreciate you taking the time to go through this. Look forward to hearing some of the client stories that you engineer in the future. Take care.
This information is for licensed financial professionals only and is not intended for use in soliciting sales from the public. The views expressed represent the opinions of the presenter or their featured guest, not necessarily those of USA Financial or its affiliated subsidiaries. Industry references are generic and are not intended to represent actions or beliefs of any individual or entity. Content is only presented to illustrate general principles, beliefs, or ideas and should not be construed as legal or regulatory advice. Trademark and copyright protected. USA Financial and Affiliates.